Throughout history, remarkable men and women have left behind ideas capable of changing the course of a life. In each episode, we'll explore one section of a timeless book, uncovering the enduring wisdom, practical lessons, and powerful stories that continue to shape thoughtful lives today. These are more than book summaries. They are an invitation to join great dialogue that has connected generations of readers, leaders, and lifelong learners. Welcome to the conversation. Welcome to Dialogue on Dialogue. Welcome back to the Dialogue on Dialogue podcast. Just a point of clarification here. This is part 5, but chapter 6. I'm sure at some point this is going to screw me up, but for the time being, let's just roll with it. So here we go on Benjamin Franklin, the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin. Part 5, when your biggest disappointment becomes your greatest education. Have you ever had someone make a promise? It's a promotion, a business opportunity, an introduction, perhaps even an investment. You make your plans around it only to discover the promise was never real. Yeah, that's frustrating. It can even feel devastating. Ben Franklin experienced exactly that as a young man. But instead of allowing disappointment to define him, he turned it into one of the greatest learning experiences of his life. Sometimes life doesn't give us exactly what we wanted. But to quote the Stones, sometimes it gives you what you need. By the end of the previous chapter, Franklin believed his future was set. It was all secure. The governor had promised to finance Franklin's dream of owning his own printing business. Franklin was instructed to sail to London, purchase the printing press, and return ready to launch his new company. There was only one problem. The governor never intended, or perhaps never quite had the ability to fulfill his promise. Before sailing, Franklin repeatedly asked for letters of introduction or letters of credit that would allow him to purchase this very expensive equipment. Each time, the governor assured him, "Oh, don't worry. The letters you are looking for, they'll be waiting on board the ship." Only after arriving in London did Franklin discover the truth. There were no letters, no financial backing, no business opportunity. After speaking with people who actually knew the governor, Franklin learned that the man had developed a reputation for making promises he couldn't keep. Franklin crossed the Atlantic Ocean based on little more than optimism. Many young people today would have viewed this as a disaster. Franklin chose a different response. He went looking for work. His skills in the printing industry quickly earned him a position in one of London's largest printing houses. His years of disciplined practice once again paid off. Now, he had a traveling companion, and his traveling companion wasn't nearly as fortunate. Unable to find steady work, he repeatedly borrowed money from Franklin simply to survive. Eventually, this friend found some employment in the countryside as a schoolmaster. Unfortunately, the friendship didn't end well. While the friend was away, Franklin, who has a reputation of a bit of a ladies' man, developed an interest in the man's girlfriend. When the friend learned of it, he declared that the money he owed Franklin no longer needed to be repaid. Franklin lost both the friendship and the loan. It was another painful lesson about trust, money, and relationships. Yet, despite these disappointments, Franklin flourished while in London. He found work that challenged him. He refined his printing skills alongside some of the most experienced craftsmen of the day, he befriended a bookseller who generously allowed him to borrow books from his shop. Once again, Franklin transformed free time into education. One of the, more fascinating stories from this chapter involves the culture that he describes inside of the print shop. Most of Franklin's co-workers believed they needed several strong pints of beer every day just to perform the hard physical labor of working in a print shop. Beer was considered almost essential for the strength on the job. Franklin disagreed. He drank water instead. His co-workers jokingly referred to him as the water American. But Franklin noticed something important. He was just as productive, and probably, frankly, more productive than the men drinking this strong beer all day long. He also spent far less money, while others devoted a significant portion of their wages to alcohol. Franklin kept his earnings. His clear mind, disciplined habits, and financial restraint gave him an advantage that compounded over his time in London. What looked like a failed business trip became something far more valuable. Franklin built his friendships, improved his craft, read extensively, and he expanded his worldview. And when the opportunity finally came to return to Philadelphia, he was no longer an inexperienced young apprentice that he was when he arrived in London. Also, he made a new acquaintance who invited Franklin to return as a clerk in his growing business. This another unexpected opportunity that had emerged. So here are some lessons that I learned from this chapter. Lesson 1, don't build your future on someone else's promises. Perhaps the greatest lesson of this chapter is also one of the hardest. Franklin believed someone else's promise would launch his career. Instead, he learned that promises are not always plans. Successful people appreciate when it comes, when help comes, but they build their lives on what they can control. Franklin couldn't control the governor. He couldn't control his circumstances, but he could control his own work ethic, his skill, his character. Those turned out to be much more reliable. Lesson 2, become an apprenticeship for yourself. It's easy to think that while in London, he could have been wasting his time. Instead, it became the most valuable educational experience of his life. He learned from master printers. He read constantly. He built lifelong friendships. Sometimes life closes one door only to place us in the classroom we didn't know we needed. Lesson number 3, daily habits compound. The water American story may seem amusing, but it is surprisingly profound. While others spent their money, dulled their minds with beer throughout the workday, Franklin just drank water. One decision saved him money, improved his health, and increased his productivity. And all of this while strengthening his reputation. Rarely does success come from one dramatic choice. More often, it's built through hundreds of small daily decisions. Lesson number 4, character doesn't mean you have to be perfect. One thing I appreciate about Franklin is that he doesn't pretend to be flawless. His less than admirable pursuit of his friend's girlfriend was not positive. Neither was some of his other early behavior. Franklin records these stories honestly because growth doesn't require perfection. It requires reflection. Throughout his autobiography, we're watching a young man gradually becoming wiser by learning from both his success and from his failures. By the end of this chapter, Franklin had lost the business opportunity he thought would define his future. Yet, he gained something far more valuable. He became more skilled, more disciplined, more independent, and, yes, more resilient. The governor's promise failed, but Franklin's habits did not. And in the end, these habits, not someone else's promises, would become the true foundation of his extraordinary life. So, having gotten through these chapters, one thought on this series overall, as we're now 6 chapters in, a larger theme is emerging that I think can become part of the signature of the themes of this book. Nearly every chapter demonstrates that Franklin wasn't transformed by a dramatic moment. He was transformed by systems of self-improvement. Studying instead of wishing in chapter 2, investing in character instead of appearance in chapters 3 and 4, choosing friends who elevate him in chapter 5, and using setbacks as education here in chapter 6. That's a powerful contrast with today's culture, which often celebrates overnight success. Franklin's autobiography quietly argues the opposite. Greatness is usually built through ordinary decisions repeated over years. Remember, the lessons are older than we are and just as valuable today.